When we think of prehistoric ocean predators, we picture the massive jaws of Megalodon, that 60-foot shark with teeth the size of your hand, or Livyatan melvillei, the sperm whale with a skull built like a battering ram. These were the apex predators of ancient seas, the stuff of nightmares and monster movies. But what if I told you that 200 million years ago, something even more massive ruled the oceans? Meet Ichthyotitan severnensis, a marine reptile so enormous that it makes Megalodon look like a minnow by comparison. And here's the incredible part. We literally just discovered this ocean titan last year in 2024, pieced together from mysterious bone fragments that had been puzzling scientists since they were first found on a storm-battered English coastline. Today, we're diving deep into the story of possibly the largest marine animal that ever lived. And it wasn't a shark, wasn't a whale, but something far more ancient. Ichthyotitan severnensis, literally fish giant from the Severn, may have reached lengths of up to 80 to 85 feet, potentially rivaling modern blue whales. So what exactly are we looking at here? Ichthyotitan belonged to a group of ichthyosaurs called shastasaurids, the giants of the ichthyosaur world. But even among giants, Ichthyotitan stood out. In April 2024, after years of careful study and comparison with other ichthyosaurs, paleontologists officially described Ichthyotitan severnensis in the journal PLOS One, naming it after the River Severn and recognizing it as potentially the largest marine reptile ever discovered. Based on comparisons with its smaller relatives, paleontologists estimate that Ichthyotitan could have reached lengths of 80 to 85 feet. That's almost the size of modern blue whales. But unlike whales, which are mammals, ichthyosaurs were reptiles that had adapted to life in the ocean. Think of ichthyosaurs as nature's first attempt at creating the perfect ocean predator. They evolved dolphin-like bodies millions of years before dolphins existed, complete with flippers, dorsal fins, and streamlined shapes built for speed and efficiency in the water. But Ichthyotitan wasn't built like a typical predatory ichthyosaur. The massive jawbones suggest something different. This was likely a filter feeder, more like a modern baleen whale than a killer whale. Those enormous jaws weren't packed with sharp teeth for catching large prey. Instead, they were probably adapted for engulfing massive quantities of small organisms. Imagine this giant cruising through Triassic seas with its mouth wide open, filtering vast amounts of water to catch small fish, squid, and marine invertebrates. It would have been like a living vacuum cleaner, processing tons of seawater to extract the nutrients it needed to fuel its massive body. This feeding strategy makes sense when you consider that the late Triassic oceans were incredibly productive, teeming with life. There was enough small prey to support multiple giant filter feeders, and Ichthyotitan wasn't even the only massive ichthyosaur swimming around at the time. But to better understand just how remarkable Ichthyotitan is, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of ichthyosaur evolution. These marine reptiles first appeared in the early Triassic, about 250 million years ago, and they dominated the oceans for over 150 million years. Early ichthyosaurs were relatively small, think dolphin-sized animals with long, narrow snouts packed with sharp teeth. But as the Triassic period progressed, some lineages began experimenting with gigantism. The shastasaurids, Ichthyotitan's family, represent the peak of this size evolution. We had species like Shonisaurus, which reached lengths of 50 to 70 feet, and Himalayasaurus, which was similarly massive. But Ichthyotitan appears to push the boundaries even further. What's fascinating is that these giants lived all over the world. Shastasaurid fossils have been found in North America, Europe, Asia, and even the Himalayas, which were underwater during the Triassic. This suggests that giant ichthyosaurs were a global phenomenon, not just a local evolutionary experiment. But here's the tragic part of the story. Most of these giants disappeared at the end of the Triassic period, about 200 million years ago. A mass extinction event wiped out many marine ecosystems, and the giant ichthyosaurs were among the casualties. The ichthyosaurs that survived into the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods were generally smaller and more specialized predators. They were successful, but they never again reached the colossal sizes of their Triassic relatives. It's only in the last few million years, with the evolution of baleen whales, that the oceans have seen giants comparable to Ichthyotitan. In a sense, blue whales are filling the same ecological niche that Ichthyotitan occupied 200 million years ago. They're just doing it as mammals instead of reptiles. But it sure wasn't easy to fully classify and understand Ichthyotitan. Here's the thing about studying giant marine reptiles. They're incredibly rare in the fossil record, and there's a good reason for that. When a massive animal like Ichthyotitan died in the open ocean, its body would typically float, decompose, and scatter across the seafloor. The chances of the bones staying together and fossilizing are extremely low. This is why most Ichthyosaur fossils we find are from smaller species, and why complete skeletons of giants like Ichthyotitan are virtually non-existent. We're usually working with fragments, a piece of jaw here, a vertebra there, maybe a flipper bone if we're lucky. In Ichthyotitan's case, researchers compared the massive jawbones to those of smaller shastosaurids like Shonisaurus. By calculating the ratios and applying scaling equations, they could estimate that the complete animal would have been truly enormous. Of course, these estimates come with uncertainty ranges. Ichthyotitan could have been anywhere from 75 to 85 feet long, or possibly even larger. Until we find more complete remains, we can't be absolutely certain. But even the conservative estimates make it a contender for the largest marine animal of all time. Just think about what it would take to keep an 80-foot marine reptile alive. These animals would have needed to consume massive quantities of food every day. We're talking tons of small fish, squid, and invertebrates. The fact that the oceans could support not just one, but multiple species of giant ichthyosaurs suggests that Triassic seas were teeming with life. But not just that, Triassic marine ecosystems. They were incredibly productive and diverse, capable of supporting multiple giant filter feeders simultaneously. So there you have it, Ichthyotitan severnensis, the ocean giant that challenges everything we thought we knew about marine megafauna. The discovery of Ichthyotitan reminds us that the history of life on Earth is full of surprises. Just when we think we understand the limits of what's possible, a new fossil emerges to expand our perspective. These ancient giants show us that evolution has experimented with oceanic gigantism multiple times throughout Earth's history. The next time you see footage of a blue whale, remember that it's part of a legacy of ocean giants that stretches back hundreds of millions of years. Ichthyotitan and its relatives prove that the drive to gigantism in marine environments is one of evolution's recurring themes, and that the ancient oceans were far more spectacular than we ever imagined. And who knows, perhaps many new fossils of previously unknown marine creatures will come to light in the future. We can only remain excited.